Welcome to this overview of HathiTrust services. I'm Angelina Zaitsev. I am the chair of the HathiTrust user support team. And this webinar is aimed primarily at members of the HathiTrust user support. I know we're also joined by folks from the copyright review management system. I'm glad that Christina was able to get that invitation out to you, but apologies for getting that out to you very late in the game. And I think we may also be joined by other folks who work on HathiTrust. So while we are attending this webinar, please note that I am going to make sure you are all muted so that there's no background noise distracting any of us. Feel free to unmute yourself to ask a question at any point. But also please do use the chat to ask any questions or post comments throughout. I'm going to hold off on answering any of those questions until the end of the webinar, but I will go through that list before we end today. If you want to, feel free to introduce yourself via the chat feature as well and just say where you are, what you do for HathiTrust. And also, as I mentioned, this session is being recorded, and the recording will be shared with folks who weren't able to attend this webinar, and the slides will be shared as well. Okay. So today I will be reviewing the following services, those that are related to discovery of HathiTrust content, access to the HathiTrust collection, some various data and analysis services that we offer, collection management services. So under the broad umbrella of collection management, I've lumped a number of very big programs, including ingest and deposit services and the shared print program. It just seemed a nice way to wrap all of those together. And also I'll just be ending with various support services that we offer end users and members, just to reiterate how users can contact us. And throughout the slides, I will be pointing out things that we don't do whenever end users contact us and ask about them. And today, I really won't go into depth about why our policies and services are the way they are. Feel free to ask during the questions time about if you're curious about how things developed or why, or email me afterwards. And I won't provide instructions about the processes for providing a service. Most of those processes are documented on the HathiTrust user support website. So to begin with, let's talk about discovery and how end users can discover content in the HathiTrust collection. So on the right side of the screen is a snapshot that I grabbed from the HathiTrust website, and it shows the numbers of volumes that are in the current HathiTrust collection. We currently have 16.7 million items, so individual works, and those come out to 8 million titles. So there's a lot of stuff in our collection, and we offer a variety of different methods that users can search across all those volumes and titles. First and foremost, as is most traditional, we offer a bibliographic search. Users can search across all 8 million catalog records that describe the 16.7 million volumes in the collection. In addition to catalog search, we offer users the ability to search across all of the text within those 16.7 million books. There are a few books where we either don't have OCR. For example, we have some handwritten manuscripts that are really difficult to generate OCR for, or we just have really wonky and broken OCR, and in those cases, full text search may not allow users to discover those items. But generally, users can search within the text of all of the books. In addition, once a user has located a book that they are interested in exploring, they can search within that book and just that book alone. They can also build collections and search across that entire collection. So I'll talk a little bit more in a second about personalized collections. And then also, we, in the past few years, have been working to build this registry of US federal government documents. This is related to a larger initiative of the US federal government document program, where we are trying to ensure that HathiTrust has a comprehensive collection of all US federal government documents. And in order to assess and and in order for us to know that we have collected all GovDocs, we've had to build a registry of all of the known GovDocs in the world. So if you want to, you can also explore the registry and learn more about US federal government documents. So I mentioned that users are able to build personalized collections. This is available to all users, not just member users. They can build collections, search within them, download metadata about the works in those collections. And then once they've built a collection in the HathiTrust digital library, they can download that metadata and use that metadata to build a work set in the HathiTrust Research Center. And I'll talk about the HathiTrust Research Center later on. In addition, we have staff-built collections that our HathiTrust staff have built based on for various purposes. On the screen, on the left side, we have a few of the collections that have been built by the HathiTrust Federal Documents Program. So they're interested in bringing together, collecting various sets of U.S. federal government documents. On the right side is another example of a staff-built collection. This is a 1923 publications collection. So this year, for those of you who are copyright geeks, it's a very big year for US copyright, where works that were published in 1923 in the United States are entering the public domain. It's an exciting thing because of the Sonny Bono Copyright Extension Act. I think I've just reached the limits of what I know about copyright, but it's an exciting year, and you can explore what items will be made full view on January 1st through this collection. In addition to staff-built collections, through HathiTrust user support, we can help users with a variety of other functions. For example, sometimes a user may graduate from their university and they no longer have access to their collection. So we can help them transfer the ownership of their collections to a different account. We have worked with some of our member libraries to build large collections. For example, we worked closely with the University of California to build a collection of California state documents. And an announcement actually just went out about it in the last week, so you can find out more about that online. And we also make collections featured in a few cases, which just highlights different collections and brings them to users' attention. In addition to those discovery services, we also work closely with OCLC to ensure that HathiTrust items are represented in WorldCat and Collection Manager, which is one of their discovery products. And recently we have undertaken efforts to try to work more closely with a number of different discovery vendors like Ex Libris and ProQuest to ensure that they are correctly representing our content in their products. So our records end up in a number of different discovery layers, and users access our records through those different discovery products and then end up on the HathiTrust website through these different discovery vendors. And in addition to all those like larger scale services and services that users can access on our website, We also provide a few different tools that allow users to highlight HathiTrust content on their own website or blog. For example, a user can embed a HathiTrust book in their blog or their personal site, which allows a user to stay on that blog or personal site, but flip through the HathiTrust book and read it on that website. You can also add a search widget to your website, which allows a user to enter a search term, start the search, and then they are taken to the HathiTrust website to complete the search. We offer various options for sharing HathiTrust books on social media like Facebook and Twitter. And in a little bit, I will be talking a little more about various options that we have that allow users to download metadata and analyze the HathiTrust collection through various tools. Okay, so that's kind of how users can discover stuff in the HathiTrust collection. And so now I'm going to be talking about various access services and support that we provide for access. So one thing I want to clarify is that when we talk about access in HathiTrust, we're talking about two different things that users can do. We're talking about being able to view books and also to download books. And there are different rules for viewing versus downloading. First and foremost, we provide view access for all books where we know that the copyright has expired or where we have received permission from the copyright holder to provide access to those books. All users have the same view access. When we talk about download, there's different things that member users versus non-member users can do, but when it comes to view access, all users have the same view access except for two cases, which is where we are able to provide staff members with access to copyrighted work for the purpose of quality remediation. For example, some of our docs and bibliographic correction group members are able to sign in to view copyrighted materials in order to correct catalog records or correct digital scans. And in a few slides, I'll be talking about print disability services that we provide where blind and print disabled users can access copyrighted works as well. And another thing that we do is when users want access to copyrighted works, this is one of the complaints or requests that we receive frequently through HathiTrust user support. We often refer them to WorldCat to try to find a print copy of that work. And in the bottom of the screen, you see a quick little screenshot from our interface where there is the text on every catalog record that invites users to locate a print version. And the link at Find in a Library, when you click that, you get taken to the WorldCat website and can see a list of all libraries that hold that book. So when it comes to download, I mentioned that there are different download access options for members versus non-members. Download of books is only available for those books that are fully viewable. And for those works, all users are able to download a full PDF of certain works. So those works include items where a Creative Commons license has been applied by the copyright holder, or they're books that were scanned by Internet Archive or directly by the university. So, for example, we've been working with Yale to ingest some of their content that was scanned at their local university scanning center, and those works tend to have no download restrictions when they're fully viewable. For works that were scanned by Google, there are download restrictions. For non-members, those users can only download a page at a time, but for users that are affiliated with a HathiTrust member institution, they can log into HathiTrust with their university account, and then download the full PDF of that book, assuming that it is, of course, fully viewable to begin with. Then, in addition to the things that users can do on the website, users can email HathiTrust user support, and we'll try to assist with download in a few different ways. In cases where the user is a non-member user, but they want a full PDF download, we sometimes try to find a different digital collection that has a copy of that book. For example, we know that the University of North Texas Digital Library has a really excellent federal documents collection, and sometimes we'll check there to see if they have a copy of a federal government document. We also work closely with Google Books support staff, and we can send them requests to review the copyright status of books in their collection, see if they can make their copy available, and then refer users to the Google Books website to download a copy of that book. Some access problems are caused by account issues that are and those accounts are controlled by the university that the user is affiliated with. So in those cases, we'll sometimes connect the users with their local IT services in order to try to resolve any account issues that are causing download problems. But I do want to emphasize, there are a lot of things that we don't do through HathiTrust user support. We will not provide users with a full PDF download if they email us. We get so many emails through HathiTrust user support where they're just looking for a full PDF and we can't provide it to them. We also periodically get requests from different libraries who want to deliver PDFs through interlibrary loan services. We don't support that service. And we generally discourage bulk redistribution or rehosting of books that are in the HathiTrust collection. On the other hand, we don't go around policing that. So additional access services that we can provide on request, users can email us in HathiTrust user support and request, let me read this in the correct order. Users are able to find, for some books, links that allow them to purchase a print-on-demand copy. So there are links for some of the books in our collection. They are always public books that are in the public domain. We can't resell and republish books that are copyrighted, of course. But when a user clicks that link, they're taken to the Amazon website and they're able to order a copy of that book. This supports users who prefer to read books in print format as opposed to digital format. Sometimes users need higher resolution images than are delivered through the HathiTrust user interface. Those images in the interface tend to be lower resolution. They sometimes aren't the high resolution that users need for publishing purposes. So we sometimes receive requests from scholars and academic from faculty where they're trying to publish a work and they need a higher resolution photo image. So they can email us and we'll distribute a limited number of images. And then one of the other access services that we are trying to make more robust is the delivery of print-ready PDFs to replace damaged library works. This service is covered by Section 108C of the U.S. Copyright Code. So books in this case must meet certain parameters. They must be out of print, and the library must have held the book at one point, and it is now either brittle, lost, or missing, or otherwise damaged. So this is a service that's only available to member institutions, and we, as I mentioned, we are working to make the service more robust, and we'll actually be updating some documentation online about this service soon. For users who are blind and print disabled, we provide a variety of services as well. One of the really cool things that came out of the lawsuit that we went through is a reinforcement of our services for print disabled users. So through our print disability services, staff at our member institutions register for access, and then once they're registered, they can log into HathiTrust and download full PDFs of every single book in the HathiTrust collection, regardless of whether it is in copyright or it is in the public domain. Then when they download that book, they send it on to their eligible users who are blind and print disabled that have requested that work. So this provision is covered by various laws around disabilities, which allow blind and print disabled users to have access to copyrighted works free of charge. And on our end, we troubleshoot problems with this service, and we manage registration of those staff members. We don't do things like, for example, vet whether a user has an eligible disability. That is done at the member campus end of things. We also do provide an accessible interface for the HathiTrust Digital Library. We've done work over the years to ensure that accessibility problems have been removed from the digital library interface, and we are continuing to work in the near future to try to address other problems that we might and are hoping to, so that's what I have to say about accessibility services. Then related to copyright review, as I mentioned, we make available for viewing access all books where we have determined that the copyright has expired. Copyright is determined primarily based on information in the catalog records. There is an automatic process that runs against books when they are first added to the HathiTrust collection, and that process looks at dates, at location of publication, at the format of the book, whether it's a monograph or a serial, as well as whether it is a U.S. federal government document. And based on the information that's in that catalog record, the script provides a final copyright determination. Of course, this process only works as well as our metadata quality works. We do periodically get requests from users who are confused about why a book has a certain copyright status. So in those cases, we'll do analysis of the catalog records that resulted in that determination to try to figure out why a book has a certain copyright status. And note that when we do that kind of catalog record analysis, we don't correct the records ourselves. I'll talk a little bit more about catalog record remediation services that we do provide. And then in addition to the record analysis work, users can also request manual copyright review for a limited set of materials. So that manual copyright review happens through the copyright review program, which is also formerly known as CRMS. Yes. So you can find out more about both copyright review and our general copyright policies at these links on our website. In addition to all those access and copyright review services, we do work closely with rights holders, copyright holders. We offer a Creative Commons form that copyright holders can complete to open access to their works for prolific authors and publishers. For example, we've worked with some university presses or some state government agencies. They can also request a report of all of their books that are in HathiTrust, and we'll provide them with a spreadsheet of all their books so that they can then do analysis of what's in HathiTrust, what isn't, and what do they want to open access to, and what don't they. We also can refer copyright holders to Google Books to manage access in that platform. Often when a user opens their when a copyright holder opens their works in HathiTrust, they want to open their works in many different platforms, so we can provide that information. One of the things we do not do, though, is provide copyright holders with copies of their books if they don't want to open access to them. That's just a risky endeavor, so we try to avoid it. But yeah, if you yourself are an author or publisher and your work is in HathiTrust, feel free to fill out that Creative Commons declaration form and get it back to us. All right, so that was access services. And now I want to talk about a few of the different tools that we offer that allow users to analyze what's in HathiTrust or extract records and data and do things with it beyond just search, reading, and access. So on this page at hathitrust.org/data, there are a few different data options that are available. We provide an OAI feed that is hosted at the University of Michigan. And through that OAI feed, you or your librarians can export records, bibliographic records from HathiTrust. And these records are only for public domain content. Our OAI feed does not include records for our in-copyright materials. And then you can take those OAI records and import them into your catalog or other online database. We also offer a BIB API, a bibliographic API, which allows you to query against the HathiTrust collection and get back bibliographic records. In order to do that, you have to use one of various identifiers. For example, you can query based on an OCLC number, an ISBN, on a HathiTrust record ID. And then when you do that, you'll get back the bib record that is associated with that identifier. We also have a custom set of files that are called the Hathi files. They are kind of inventory records. The Hathi files represent everything that is in the HathiTrust collection. So users are able to use those records to analyze the entire HathiTrust collection. There are various fields that are in the Hathi files. There's, for example, like title, author, publisher, but there's also things like copyright and view status and date of last update, and a few other fields that relate to management of the content in the HathiTrust collection. One of the ways that users use those Hathi files is to create direct links to HathiTrust items. And there's information on the website about how to create those custom links. In addition, we do provide a US copyright renewal file, which provides the copyright renewal registration numbers for items that have undergone manual copyright review and where we have determined that they are still copyrighted. So you can find out more about those files as well at the data link. In addition to that, members are able to request to other options. When members join HathiTrust, they are required to provide us with print holdings data, which describes all of the print items in their collection. This is really robust metadata. It's really interesting metadata. And we use this data to determine a fair fee for the member that's based on the size of their collection and how it compares to the HathiTrust collection. So one thing that members can do is that they can contact us and request either an overlap report or a gap report that compares their library collection to the HathiTrust collection. Some members use the overlap reports to make collection decisions or to support retention commitments in the shared print program. We've also run gap reports that indicate which items are in HathiTrust but that the member doesn't have, or which items the member has that HathiTrust doesn't. And these gap reports can be used, for example, to identify items for digitization programs. In addition to those overlap and gap reports, we also can set up member librarians with access to our Google Analytics, which is how we track usage in HathiTrust. I previously mentioned the HathiTrust Research Center, or which we commonly refer to as HTRC. And so HathiTrust Research Center is kind of its own unique operation. It is still funded by HathiTrust in part, and it has a output of all of the HathiTrust Research Center, or the HathiTrust collection. There are various tools that are available through HTRC, which you can access through their website at analytics.hathitrust.org. There are pre-made algorithms, which are tools to allow you to perform text analysis against various books. The extracted features data set is a data set that you can download and it includes data about specific features that are extracted from the full text. So that means like you can get some basic bibliographic metadata, but also things like page numbers or number of tokens in a work or genre or things like that. In addition, there's the HathiTrust Plus Bookworm tool, which allows you to visualize and analyze word usage trends. And the HTRC data capsule is a secure computing environment that supports text analysis. And it allows you to create a work set and perform analysis against that work set. And I've added a note at the bottom that maybe is a little premature, but I believe there will be an announcement coming out sometime this week about how the HTRC services will now allow users to perform analysis against copyrighted content. So keep an eye out for that announcement. It's a very exciting thing. Although HTRC has been providing its services for several years now, those services have been primarily related to the public domain corpus. So we're very excited about this new initiative. For users who want to do more with their data than they can do through HathiTrust Research Center, those users can also request to have copies of the OCR to download onto their own machine. There are two main collections. There's the Google collection and the non-Google collection, which has fewer restrictions. Users can also request a specific set of IDs that they want to receive a data set for. There is a proposal process that users have to go through to get these data sets. And for Google content in particular, we only distribute that content to researchers that are affiliated with with a university. It doesn't have to be a HathiTrust member university, but we just need that university to sign an agreement with Google itself before we can distribute a data set to that user, to that researcher. I do want to point out that we don't provide MARC records or image files through the datasets through the dataset service. There are other tools that allow users to get the MARC records, and generally we don't distribute image files except through the HathiTrust Digital Library interface. All right, so now we get to this broad umbrella of collection management services, beginning with deposit services for member libraries. So many of our institutions have joined HathiTrust in order to take advantage of HathiTrust preservation and access services rather than hosting their own digital libraries at their own campuses. So those libraries either digitize content themselves or work with vendors to digitize their content to a set of strict specifications that we have. We are currently accepting content in TIFF and JPEG 2000 formats. We also, the metadata must be in MARC format, and related to that, we also expect a variety of other things to be included in those packages, for example, plain text OCR. We are currently exploring how to accept PDFs and EPUBs into the digital library, and we're working with a few different university presses to include that content. And I do want to emphasize, this is one of the things that sometimes folks get confused about. We don't digitize the content ourselves at HathiTrust. Instead, it is our member institutions who digitize the content and deposit it into the HathiTrust repository. We do get a few requests from users and non-members that we can or cannot enable. For example, there are sometimes non-partner libraries or non-member organizations that wish to deposit their content into HathiTrust. There have been a few pilot projects where we've been able to take this content in, but because of some fee implications that this has on our member libraries, this process is currently on hold and is pending review by the board to figure out how to deal with the cost implications of accepting content from non-members. In addition, end users sometimes email us and ask us to add items to the HathiTrust collection. For example, they're looking at a serial record and they notice that we're missing volume 23 of this record. So they'll email us and ask us, why is volume 23 missing? Can you add it to HathiTrust? These requests are kind of difficult for us to address. We are able to work with the University of Michigan Library to try to get them to scan those volumes through their digitization workflows and then deposit it into HathiTrust. But when we've tried to do this with other member libraries, it's been a lot more difficult. We have a very close relationship with the University of Michigan Library, in part because one of our HathiTrust user support team members is also the head of the digital collections unit at the University of Michigan Library. When we've tried to work with other libraries on these requests, they often find that it's just difficult to track these requests through their own workflows and report back to us when it's in HathiTrust or ready to be deposited. Every once in a while, a user will also invite us to take the work that they have scanned at home and include it into the HathiTrust collection. These requests seem to increasingly come from authors and publishers who have their small, unique, wonderful books that they want to include in HathiTrust. We're not able to accept these requests. Our processes for ingest really work best at scale, so we work better with large batches of material, as opposed to being able to handle these one-off requests. So in those cases, we refer users to Internet Archive or Google Books, both of which do have workflows that allow users to upload their own scanned volumes to those collections. So in addition, of course, we take in content and we commit to preserving that content for the long term. This commitment to long-term preservation is based in our origins and how HathiTrust has started. When libraries partnered with Google to do mass digitization, there were some concerns about whether a corporate entity would commit to preserving content over the long term. For example, we've seen products like the Google News Archive and many different Google services go away when they're no longer profitable, and HathiTrust was created as a result of that worry and that anxiety. So we commit to preserving content over the long term. Once content is in the HathiTrust collection, there are various things that we can do to try to correct the quality of any problems that are noted in the collection. Anyone can report problems to us through the HathiTrust Digital Library interface. We will investigate those problems. So this is handled by the Digital Objects Quality Corrections team. And then that DOCS team, the Digital Objects Quality Corrections team, they work with Google to try to remediate the quality of those books that Google scanned. I want to point out here that one of the cool things that has changed recently is that Google is now able to also correct OCR problems. This is a relatively new thing that they're able to do. Before they could only really work on like page image problems as opposed to just trying to correct the OCR. And in addition to working with Google, the Docs team members also work with contributing libraries to try to get missing pages and foldouts scanned. We have a process that is called SPEAR, which stands for Single Page Image Replacement. It stands for something.
Single page insertion and replacement.
Thank you, Kat.
You're
Kat
welcome.
is one of the authors of that process, so I'm glad she knows what it stands for. Right, so through that process, we send requests to our contributing institutions. They scan missing pages through their own digital scanning processes in their institution, upload them to Google, and notify Google, and then Google fixes it and packages it all together. And then we, on our end, get a fresh copy of that work back into the HathiTrust collection. It's a very complicated process, but it allows us to get missing pages and foldouts back into books that were missing those pages. One thing I do want to emphasize, though, is that at HathiTrust Central, we don't modify the content ourselves. Instead, the Docs team is working closely with Google that does the quality corrections and with the member libraries that do the quality corrections. And the Docs team is in the middle, handling the communications and coordinating that process. Similarly, for catalog record problems, we receive those requests again from anyone that lets us know that there's a problem. These problems are handled by the Bibliographic Corrections Group, the BCG. And as I mentioned, that the copyright is based on catalog records. So a large number of our catalog record problems are related to actually trying to get open access to a work based on wrong metadata. And again, the BCG team, they don't correct the records. We don't correct the records ourselves. Instead, the BCG team analyzes the problem, determines if what the fix is based on current cataloging practices, and works with the contributing library to try to get corrected records back into HathiTrust. And I do want to emphasize the immense work that both the BCG and Docs teams do to correct these issues. In both cases, team members are investigating and analyzing problems. They're communicating with end users, member libraries, and vendors, and tracking on some long-standing issues that could just take months or years to resolve. So thank you for your persistence in resolving those problems. Another service that we offer is the Shared Print Program. This program kicked off 2 years ago, and through this program, member libraries commit to retaining print copies of monographs that are also in the HathiTrust collection. So currently in this phase of the Shared Print Program, 16 million monographs have been committed. Member libraries have committed to retaining 16 million monographs. Eventually, in a further phase of the Shared Print Program, I believe we are going to investigate how we can support lending services of those retained copies. I am not sure how that's going to work out. I'm not very embedded in the Shared Print Program, so I don't have much information about that, I'm afraid. All right, so this basically brings us to the very end of our services. So I want to conclude with our support services and things that we can do to just help users get what they want to get. So we provide help pages on the HathiTrust website where users can read a long list of help items and questions to help them navigate our complex policies and the HathiTrust Digital Library. Users are also able to connect with HathiTrust user support by emailing feedback@issues.hathitrust.org. And the HathiTrust user support team will help troubleshoot common problems and answer questions about the digital library, various services that we offer. One thing I do want to clarify, though, about HathiTrust user support is that we are not a reference service, so we often refer users who have complex research questions to their local library institutions for those reference services. And in addition to answering a lot of questions and troubleshooting a lot of problems ourselves, we often connect users with other support services and help desks. So HathiTrust user support is kind of like the spider in this very complex web that interacts with all these other institutions. We work closely with Google Books, we work closely with OCLC, and we communicate with various staff members at our member libraries, including campus IT services. So I hope that this clarified that the services that we offer to end users and members. As you can see, many of our services are described and available online, and others can be requested by emailing HathiTrust user support. And for those services that aren't clearly communicated online, we'll be working to make those services better documented and easier to request in the coming years. All right, so I think this brings us close. We have 10 more minutes, and I would love to answer any of your questions at this time. So someone asked, how many of the catalog records are remediated a year? That's a little bit difficult to answer. I haven't stared at the statistics for user support in a little bit. I'm afraid I can't answer that question at this time. I can check our JIRA ticketing system and see how many catalog record requests we receive and how many are fixed, but that'll take me a few minutes to do that query. I know that in addition to the corrections that we send to our member institutions, some of our contributing institutions, they undertake projects on their own end to correct their own records and just upload those records to our systems without us prompting them. So there are records that are being corrected and submitted every day. Are there any other questions? Feel free to type them into the chat box.
Oh, well, thank you. I thought I would ask this question. I'm Cynthia at UNC. And I don't know if this is a left field question, but from time to time, the from LC Jakarta, we get lists of URLs for titles that are available that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what happens to what the South Asian selector does with those lists, but it occurred to me that the challenge is how to systematically get those into a catalog. And so you mentioned working with OCLC well, that's different from the Library of Congress. But anyway, I just wondered, because you can build your collection, you can build these collections. Is it possible to take those lists of URLs and turn them into HathiTrust into a HathiTrust collection? Do you think?
Maybe. I don't think so, because our collections are built through we might be able to do it by with some scripting behind the scenes that's done by the programmers. We wouldn't be able to support that kind of collection building through the interface, however. So I think
Okay.
if you gave us a link of URLs, we would need something like OCLC numbers or ISBNs or even a publisher, a list of publishers or something like that. And then we could take that data, generate the list of HathiTrust item identifiers, and then use that list of HathiTrust item identifiers to build collections.
And we would be building it at HathiTrust or just at UNC? It would be a Hathi. It seems like a collaboration between Jakarta and HathiTrust, LC, Library of Congress.
So I'm not sure what the end goal would be, but we can explore that offline. That's
Okay.
an interesting idea. And there's a variety of different tools that we offer, so we could explore
Sorry.
what options are the best options for that scenario. I realized I haven't typed my email address. So feel free to email me at azaytsev@hathitrust.org. Are there any other questions? All right, in that case, I am going to go ahead and end this webinar. Do feel free to email me with any other follow-up questions that you have about any of the services that we offer or anything else related to HathiTrust. Thank you all for joining me today, and I will see you all online.
Thank you very much. I really learned a lot. I
Oh,
enjoyed it.
excellent. I'm glad to hear that.